Hello everyone. Today is our first video lecture on the liberal course GPDR 231BE, and that is stress and stress management. Before you continue to watch and listen to this lecture, I will entreat you to have your jotter or your notebook beside you so that you can jot down the points that will be discussed under this lesson. If you at the right time or the appropriate time, you'll be given the opportunity to ask questions. As already discussed, we'll have video lecture, and once a while we'll have face-to-face lecture. This channel has been designed for two courses: stress and stress management for level 200 students, introduction to counseling or guidance and counseling or counseling psychology, that is also for level 300 student. I will entreat you first of all to quickly subscribe to the channel so that the subsequent videos or lectures will come directly onto your phone. And when we also meet face to face, you can have the opportunity to ask all questions. Therefore, let your notebooks, your jotters should be around you whilst we continue the lecture. On stress and stress management, today's objective will take care of Unit 1 of our course outline, which we already have in our first interaction, first face-to-face interaction. And that will cover the meaning of stress, types of stress, and how the body reacts to stress. Stress has become a very common word in our daily life, very common word in our daily conversation. And day in and day out, we talk about stress. People talk about stress. People express it. People say it verbally. People's actions even reflect that something perhaps is going wrong in their life. The word is derived from an English word stressors, meaning hardship, and in French word it means oppression. In French word it means oppression. So English word is telling us hardship. In French it's telling us oppression. Good. The term stress started in the field of medicine since the 17th century, and within that time physicians or medical doctors realize that the human beings have been going through some form of physical illness that might result from social pressure. So this kind of illness the individuals were going through, the individuals were expressing or were showing in terms of their regular visit to the hospital. As far back as 17th century, it was recognized that it was as a result of a social pressure. Good. These pressures of modern life, this social pressure we are talking about, how our modern life today, we live a very complex life. We all live very complex lives. As a student, you move from one lecture hall, you have about 7 courses to study, handled by different individuals. In our attempt to cope with one lecturer, it's also difficult to cope with the other. So you can imagine that you are dealing with about 7 courses, which means 7 different lecturers. In that sense, coping with their teaching skills, their demands as a student is not easy. This issue about financial issues, how you cope. Some are in some form of relationships they need to cope. Some are married and combining with academic work. Some are working because they have not secured any steady leave and they want promotions. They are working as well as attending school. Come to the home. Responsibility has come to stay and is increasing on daily basis. Parents who have to hustle on daily basis to take care of their kids. Wives who have to hustle on daily basis, combine work with their responsibilities at home. Husbands who have to combine work with their responsibilities at home. All these things emanate or brings about a lot of pressure on our life. Sometimes it is not necessarily that we want to do these things, but we want to cope with friends. We want to be part of the standard. Colleagues may be behaving in a particular way. My friend or your friend will have certain things that you don't have, depending on the family you are coming from. And you also wish to have it. That becomes a pressure on you to be able to achieve this. And this pressures that we are talking about brings about emotional imbalances in our system. And these emotional imbalances can be labeled as stress. These emotional imbalances in human being that comes as a result of pressures from our society, pressures at our workplace, pressures from our homes, from our friends, from wherever so it may come from. If we are unable to manage it properly, it creates emotional imbalances. And we can term these emotional imbalances as stress. Good. The common nature of these pressures, as far back as 1983, Time magazine described it as age of stress. This means that we have come to a level in our life. We have come to a stage in human life, an age or a period in human life, that no single human being can say that as for me, there is no way I will experience stress. You will experience, and stress is now part of our daily life. It is because of what we do, because of the up and downs that we involve ourselves in, the responsibilities that we place on ourselves. Even the baby in the mom's womb has some responsibility. So that our responsibilities are increasing daily on daily basis. They are increasing on daily basis in the sense that it's gradually becoming very difficult for us to cope with. Therefore, every human being from the child to the old age, one way or the other, something will expose us to stress. Today, we talk so much about stress. People talk about stress. People mention the word. People put out behaviors and let everyone to know. But the question is, what really is about this stress? All that we've been saying, we've been calling. Some people even go to the extent. People use words like strain, conflict, burnout, depressions, pressure, all these things, when as maybe they are really facing or going through stress. So the ability to differentiate between some of these key concepts, for example, burnout, depression, somebody is under pressure. We use these words in place of stress sometimes. Sometimes people use it to describe, and when you ask them, what is it that is wrong with you? In the course of my work as a counselor, or we have been managing clients related to some of these challenges, they come to you, they narrate a lot of things, they narrate long stories, they can't even tell. It will be through assessment, out of which we get to know that the individual get to understand through a lot of work that the person is going through stress and need to be assisted. Many people consider stress. You see, people have different perception about stress. And in the school of thought, I have two areas. In the course of my work, I've looked at it from two perspectives. How people conceptualize or people consider stress. One, some people, they conceptualize stress as something which happens to them, an event such as harm or encouragement. So people look at stress as something that happens to them. For example, if they receive a bad news, to them, the bad news automatically becomes the stress. If the individual could not pass his or her exams and is going through stress, the person will refer to the inability to pass that particular paper or fail a paper as stress. In any case, others also look at stress from different perspectives. They think that the resultant effect of the event is what they consider as stress. For example, so we say that others think about stress. Others think stress is what happens to their body. So what happens to the individual's body, the individual's psychic, the individual's behavior in response to the event. So what it means is that, for example, you can fail your paper. While somebody looked at stress as failing a paper, somebody also look at it that, okay, how do you interpret that failure? The interpretation we give to the failure is what causes stress, but not the real event. It is true because the argument here is you have failed a paper. How do you consider it? Do you see it as the end of your life? Somebody will fail a paper. Somebody will fail even two papers, two courses. Another person will fail only one. And the one who failed one will be crying. The one who have failed two will be normal. What it means is that how do you interpret that event? The interpretation we give to the event, that is what will result in the body feeling stressful, or that is how the body will interpret as a stressor. So these are two different perspectives as to how people conceptualize stress. So we want to look at what stress is, and as a result, I've taken some classical definitions of experts within the field of stress. So I've taken the first one, Silly 1978. He defines stress that stress is a bodily reaction to stresses. And this body reaction that he's talking about here is looking at it from a complex interactions of the system in the body, which can result in, you see, the consequences that is going to result in. That is what he's looking at it from. And to those systems and organs to the point of the person's becoming precious. So what he's trying to say generally is that by his definition, you realize that what is bringing the stress is one. Two, how the body is going to react, whether the human system, the human has what it takes to be able to go through what stressor is coming, how the person will be able to manage, and the ability to manage, if it is managed effectively, you realize that the individual will feel okay. But if it's not managed effectively, you realize that the individual will experience some serious illness in the course of that individual's way of dealing with the situation. Another definition that I want us to look at is saying that stress is an adaptive response toward an external situation. So what is coming? That again, something is going to influence the person, the human being, and that thing could be classified as the stressor. You see, so that external situation we are talking about could result into something else. The result will be physical, psychological, or behavioral deviation, meaning the individual, the stressor that is coming, that external event, that external situation can affect the person's behavior depending on how physically, psychologically, the individual will react to this external event. So it is very, very important we look at how we react to events. You see, the way we react to event is so much important. It is always appropriate for us to understand event properly. Some of us, by virtue of hearing that something is going wrong somewhere, you are there, and then somebody rushed to you and say, "Hey, Charlie, have you heard what somebody is saying about you?" Even though you are not sure whether the person is telling the truth or not, by virtue of saying that the person is talking about you, you are already angry. You see, you're already furious, and that doesn't help. For all you know, the one giving you the information might be telling something that is not right. You see, sometimes you have a problem with somebody, and because you have a problem with somebody, if the person is chatting with another person, to you, that individual is discussing you. So it becomes quite difficult for you even to relate properly. We need to be very careful in giving interpretation to some of these events in our lives. Another definition is telling us as that it is a stimulus, an environmental event. So you see, so it is a stimulus, something that can influence us, something that can change our way of thinking, something that can change our way of behavior. And we consider some of these things as threats. See, and the moment you consider it as stress in your life, it becomes quite difficult for the body to quickly organize its internal resources to deal with it. Our interpretation still stands here. The way we interpret events. So here we can say that stress is referred to as a stressor, one that evokes complex reactions of the various systems of the body. So the moment the interpretation comes, very soon we look at how the body reacts to stresses, and you understand it better. So you realize that the moment the individual interprets the event in a particular way, that makes the body, the human body, to kind of react in a particular way. So in simple terms, we can say that stress is the inability to cope with a perceived. So that's the word. Inability to cope with a perceive, what you perceive as threat. What you perceive as threat might not necessarily be a threat to another person. So our perception about event, our perception about things can either affect or will help us to live emotionally stable. So we are saying that a threat to one's mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual well-being, which results in a series of physiological responses and adaptation. You see, so the kind of interpretations that we give to the event, how we perceive the event, can either help us to react positively or react negatively. So at this moment, we move straight to types of stress. And the first one that we want to look at is all stress. And this is a kind of stress that inspires or motivates you to go beyond present level of functioning. You know, since we started this lesson, if you're not very careful, based on the kind of interpretation, the kind of meaning we attach to the word stress, if you're not careful, you think that stress is entirely negative. But today, I want you to know that stress is not entirely negative. It depends on the kind of stress you are experiencing and the level of your stress that will determine its negativity. So we are saying here that all stress is what helps us. You see, it helps us so much. At some point, it serves as a level of motivation. For example, if you are asked to climb, if you are asked to do a particular thing, so that at the end of the day there will be a prize awaiting or a prize attached to that action, what happened? That will motivate you to do your best. So that prize that you are seeing there, that thing you are seeing there, that will be given to you at the end of the day. Assuming they called you, you do very well, and because you want to have your first class, because of the target first class, that becomes a motivation for you. And that feeling, that drive becomes a positive stress in your life. You see it. So It is very important for us to know that stress is not entirely negative. We need some level of stress to work hard. We need some level of stress to get to the kind of level in life we want to. We need some level of stress to get to our limit. So it helps us to work harder because you know what awaits you. You know exactly what awaits you. So you work harder in order to achieve that. And we call this type of stress as a positive stress. See, I'm sure you'll be surprised that how can stress also be positive? Some level of stress will help you to achieve the best. Some level of stress will push you harder to be able to achieve what you plan for life. The opposite of the stress is distress. So whilst the stress is the positive one, this is the negative one, and that is distress. It's saying that it occurs when our inability, or sorry, it occurs when our ability to cope with stresses is insufficient. You see, it is when it is insufficient. And this way of saying insufficient, we are looking at the kind of resources that we have. These resources, especially, will be from within and outside. So, how do the system organize itself to react to a stressor is important. And we are saying that this distress is a bit destructive. See, it's dangerous, it can cause anxiety, it can make you confused, it can also decreases your performance. See, assume you get to an examination room, you are so anxious, you cannot even read one sentence correctly, even to understand before you answer the question. You get to an interview ground, you are so tensed up. You get to the room, they ask, if you're not very careful, even if they ask you of your own name, it becomes a bit difficult. Why? This is dangerous to us. It is often associated with stressful events that occur unexpectedly. You see, things that you are not expecting to happen, things that you will not even want to hear it in your life. It can happen to you. Then that will bring a negative stressor, something you cannot, it becomes difficult to find solution to. We are saying that it's also known as the negative stress. We have two kinds of distress. One, acute stress. When we look at acute stress, we can say that acute stress, even though it's negative, but when it comes quickly and then it goes back, depending on how the body is able to organize its resources to be able to deal with it. For example, you are just walking, all of a sudden, a snake crosses your way. Because of the fear of snake, that can make you experience some acute stress immediately. You see? But with time, the body will come back to its normal state. You are just walking, you realize that your mobile phone is not with you. That can cause some level of acute stress. And with time, the body will come back to its normal state. It doesn't keep so long, it disappears quickly. The other one is chronic stress. That is also an example of distress. This is more dangerous. This one comes gradually. It comes gradually. It will be taking you gradually, to be eating you up gradually. And with time, it can prolong. And that becomes very, very dangerous to you. So some people cannot even sleep anymore. Some people cannot concentrate anymore. It brings mental health challenge to them. See, that becomes a bit difficult. And that is where you need to quickly seek the assistance of someone who can be of help, a counselor or a psychologist, who will quickly assist you to be able to manage that level of stress in your life. For example, Someone you heard the bad news, you've lost your dad, you've lost your mom. So you after hearing the news, you see the person sitting down, looking into the air. You even see some of them kind of trying to laugh, whilst we know very well that the news is not that kind of good news that will make you laugh. So it gives us a sign. It is a red flag. And the individual will sit and be interpreting this event and will be interpreting it. Okay, does it mean now that I don't have a father, how am I going to survive? Oh, that is the end of my life. Oh, that is this, that is that. So the interpretations will be given to that event. You see, so the individual will be so confused. The individual will not even know what to do. That individual can even end up at the hospital because of that event. Some cannot even eat. Some will be having sleepless nights. And all these will compound the problem. The last one is the new stress. And this is, we can call it the neutral. It's rather neutral. This is neutral. And we say that it describes the sensory stimuli that has no consequential effect. You see, it is not as serious as distress. No. It is also not stress. It doesn't even motivate you either. It is just, it's there for us to know that this is another type of stress. It's not considered good or bad. You see, it is just the sensory stimuli that we experience day in, day out as a normal being. We are going straight to our last point for today's objective, the body reaction to stress. And with this is just going to be a summary, because very soon we'll be looking at the theoretical explanations of stress, theoretical underpinnings as far as stress is concerned. We'll be looking at them, and that will help us to understand very well how this whole thing of stress, or how the body reacts, how the body will be stressed up, or what exactly that will happen to the human body. I think out of the theoretical models that we'll be looking at, we'll have a better understanding as to how the body reacts to stress. But in summary, we want to look at it from this angle. One, so we say that the stimuli from one or more of the five senses. You see, the senses that we have, the sense organs that we have, our senses, the interpretations that it takes from the event. The event is painful. For example, you stepped on a fire, and quickly a message will be sent to the brain telling the brain what is happening. It is out of that message that will be sent, that interpretation that will be sent to the brain, that is what the body is going to work on. So we're saying that quickly what will happen is that stimuli, if it is interpreted, the brain will begin to interpret it as threat or not threat. So the interpretation that will be given to that stimuli will have a lot of work to do on the body, depending on your personal experience that you may have. For example, somebody who fears height or cats, by seeing cats, that person has seen something dangerous. Another person will play with cats without feeling anything bad. So it's the same object, the same event. Somebody will see snake and start running away. Another person will see snake and be looking for means of driving it away, will be so bold and will not want to run away. In our context here in Ghana, the person will even be looking for stick to kill that snake. But others will run away. Why? It's as a result of your experiences in life. It's as a result of your resources that you have as far as that object is concerned. So we are saying that if the stimuli is not regarded as threat, dangerous, the body relaxes. But the moment it's considered as dangerous, as bad, as unprecedented, as something that shouldn't happen to any human being, we look at it that this is something that shouldn't happen to me. So people even say, why me? And sometimes in the course of our work as counselors, in the counseling unit, people say, why me, counselor, why me? Then I do ask myself, if you say, why me, then does it mean that it should happen to somebody else? But I believe in one thing, that whatever you are going through is because you can solve it. You have what it takes, only you have not discovered it yet. The moment you discover it, the moment you are guided to discover it, you have what it takes to overcome that challenge. But the problem is that we don't find ways of discovering what we have. We don't find ways of discovering our strengths from our weaknesses, but rather we capitalize on our weaknesses, and that brings us down. That becomes dangerous to us. You see? So the moment the body treats it or sees it as not threat, or is not a threat, it's a normal thing, then the body will be normal. What it means is that even you can fail your paper and still say that, okay, this is not the first time somebody has failed a paper. So what should I do? Let me rather organize myself, prepare, and reseat that paper. The person will be normal. Another person will see it as, hey, me failing a paper. How will people see me? You see the interpretation. It is what others will say. If you live your life based on what others will say, there is no way, or it will be very difficult for you to experience what we call happiness in life, because you are being guided. Your whole life is based on what others will say. You see how serious it is. So we need to be careful. The third stage is that the body stays activated, aroused, until the thread is over. So the moment the interpretation is given or the signal is given and the brain interprets it that it is negative, the moment that interpretation comes, quickly part of the body organs will start organizing itself, its resources, to be able to deal with the threat. And the moment the threat is over, then the body relaxes. See, that goes to the stage 4. But the moment the body is unable to find the needed resources to deal with a threat, that breaks down the body. That makes the individual to a different level. It carries the individual state to a different level. That makes the individual to behave differently. This is our introduction to the course. Thank you. Just as a recap, today we've looked at the meaning of the concept stress. We've also tried to look at types of stress that we have. And finally, we've looked at how the body reacts to stress. And I want to say thank you for listening to this video. Subsequent ones will come covering Unit 2 of your course outline. And I want to entreat you to try and read more. Please, these are a summary of what we have. A lot of materials out there. Go online, read more. That will enhance your understanding of the lesson. Till we meet again, I wish you all the very best. Remember to subscribe to the channel so that the subsequent ones will come to you. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.